The 2022 NBA regular season kicks off very soon, and the preseason is now over, so we've got a small taste of what's to come already from what we've seen. Every offseason, players work on their games to try to improve and come back stronger for the next season, and young players put in the work necessary to break out and begin to live up to their potential, so the preseason is a good way to get an early look at how everyone looks after the break. The games may not mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but there are still things we can learn from them, which brings us to the topic of today's video. Today, we'll be discussing the 4 things that stuck out the most to me from the preseason that could prove to be very notable in transitioning to the regular season, being anything from certain players being ready to break out, or even certain teams playing new playstyles. Before we start though, it turns out about 51% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first thing we'll be discussing on this list of preseason notables is the fact that Giannis Antetokounmpo now seems to be more confident in his jump shot than ever before. Giannis has been a player who every year just keeps getting better and better, and if you look at where he was when he was drafted to where he is now, you'd see a guy with one of the best work ethics in the entire league. From his added strength, to his ability to attack off the dribble while staying under control, to learning how to overpower his matchups, he's become a historically great player in this league in a short amount of time. And now, he may have just figured out how to add the one piece to the puzzle that he was previously missing. With how strong he is, his jump shot had always been pretty stiff and inconsistent, and while he was capable of knocking down deep shots every now and then, it had definitely not been something reliable for him. Now though, Giannis seems to have worked incredibly hard this offseason to make his shot more comfortable, and based on what he unleashed in the preseason games, it's looking pretty good. His form is quicker and more fluid, the shots are going in at a better rate in a small sample size though, and especially off the dribble, he looks much more comfortable pulling up for jump shots. His three-point shot improving would be great, but even his turnaround and pull-up jumpers in the mid-range would unlock a whole new part of his game that would make him even more dominant, and this is a 2-time MVP we're talking about, which could be a scary sight for the rest of the league. The next notable aspect of the preseason to monitor as the regular season starts back up is the potential emergence of Tyler Herro. Herro first broke out onto the scene as a rookie when he had a few electric scoring performances in the bubble playoffs as the Miami Heat made an unlikely run to the NBA Finals that year. With this kind of production coming on the big stage as a rookie, people had pretty high hopes for him last season, but needless to say, he didn't quite live up to the hype. He was notably withheld from being included in any trade offers for James Harden back when Harden was available and looking to be traded, which resulted in even more scrutiny coming Herro's way when he didn't play up to the level that was expected of him. And even though he did show some general improvements overall from year 1 to year 2, he also took a step back in terms of efficiency and decision making. He's the kind of player that likes to always look for his shot, and as a young player on a playoff team like the Heat, that's not always ideal because young players with this kind of skill set make some mistakes often and suffer some growing pains. But in this year's preseason, he looks poised to have a breakout season that many hoping he would have last year. He led the Heat in scoring this preseason, putting up about 22 points per game in 26 minutes per game this preseason, which is pretty damn impressive on a point per minute output. And on top of that, he was making 51% of his shots and 45% of his threes. Obviously, the sample size is small, and it's not realistic to expect his production to be quite that good this season, but at the very least, he looks more poised and under control, he gets to his spots better and hasn't forced as much, and he should provide greater impact overall in the upcoming season. The next preseason notable we'll be discussing today is that the 76ers may have unlocked the exact spacing that they need for Joel Embiid without Ben Simmons. The 76ers used preseason as mostly just a way for their main contributors to shake off some rust, while giving the fringe players on the roster a lot of minutes. So even though we didn't see a lot from the starters, we did get a glimpse into their plans without Ben. The plan has been to basically surround Joel Embiid with as much shooting as possible, and as a result of it, in those brief periods, they demolished their opponents. They matched up specifically with the Brooklyn Nets in a particular preseason game where James Harden and Kevin Durant were playing, and they blew them out of the building. And the key was giving Joel Embiid as much room to operate as they can. The reason why so many people say Joel's fit with Simmons is clunky is because when Simmons doesn't have the ball in half-court settings, he tends to hover around the rim, looking for putbacks and cutting to the basket, which then eats up some space in the paint for Embiid to operate. One lineup the Sixers used in particular featured Embiid surrounded by Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, Isaiah Joe, and Furkan Korkmaz, all of which are either above average or really good shooters, and alongside them, Embiid was able to attack one-on-one, which is just too easy for him. Embiid is the most dominant post player in the league right now, who last season was one of the top 5 most efficient post scorers around the basket, while also posting up over 100 times more than anybody else, and he did that facing constant double teams throughout the year. If and when the Sixers eventually trade Simmons, their target should be to obviously add more shot creation, but also even more shooting, because that dynamic is an easy recipe for success offensively. And finally, the last thing we'll be discussing today that I found very notable from the preseason is that Jordan Poole of the Golden State Warriors is ready to give them big-time production no matter what role he finds himself in. The Warriors are generating a lot of buzz again this season, because Klay Thompson is coming back, and the Splash Brothers are going to be reunited on the court after 2 years of injuries to Klay, keeping them apart. After going 2 seasons in a row also without playoff basketball, this is a very welcome sight for them, because they desperately needed his presence, but due to the severity of Klay's injuries that he's returning from, it's unreasonable to expect him to immediately be the same player that he was a few years ago. This is why Poole's development is so critical, because while Klay works himself back into the swing of things, Poole looks ready to make a big leap individually and give the team steady production at the shooting guard spot also. In just 23 minutes per game action in the preseason so far this year, Poole put up about 22 points per game, which again is pretty damn impressive. The Warriors rely a lot on Steph Curry to create points, but Poole looks more confident than ever off the dribble, looking for his own offense. He's been efficient in that small sample size, he's shifty and quick, and he can score from all 3 levels. Depth has been a concern for the Warriors team over the last few years, but off the bench, Poole should be instant offense for them. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think were some of the most notable parts of the NBA preseason. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.